G'day YouTube, Warbles got a lot here. Part of the fun of having the .R child living in the tent in my front yard is Daddy gets to be the mailman. Whoopsie, how politically incorrect. The postal delivery person. Not a mailman, not these days. Apparently. Anyway, the tent. I've had to do a fair bit of tent fettling recently, actually. Those of you who've been paying close attention and got a good memory will notice that this length of stainless steel tube has doubled, so it's a different bit of stainless steel tube. If you really have been paying attention, you'll see that this double wall section, that's a new one because the old one completely collapsed and fell to pieces and the chimney fell down. So therefore this gland has had to be repositioned a couple of times actually. We've got a different fly on because the second fly had been worn out by the ultraviolet, which is why you have flies. They're only $200, whereas a tent's $2,000. And then that went in to replace the old one, which from memory indeed found itself being stored for posterity's sake inside the second battery box, being kept because it might not yet be time to throw it away. Number one battery box has been augmented by a sunshade, the better to prevent the black top of the box from overheating the stuff that's in here. And the stuff that's in here has changed. We've now got a 20 amp solar regulator because the old 10 amp one died. And we now have a multimeter in the box, as well as an amp meter. Because it's just a bit of a pain in the arse to come out here and have a look at the voltmeter, the amp meter, and not have a voltmeter and be running back inside the tent to have a look at the multimeter in there to see what the volts are. So yeah, that just makes it a bit more easier. We do have another multimeter inside as well as an amp meter to tell us how much has been consumed by the inverter and the fridge. However, to return to all things stovish, show us anything up there? Probably not. That's the inside of the new gland, which was embarked upon because the canvas was so rotten in around here on the new one, on the old one rather, so therefore that got a new one. And no sooner was that all set up and in service than lo and behold, the stainless steel 2-inch diameter flue pipe cracked and broke off down about here, and it was a $70 exercise to get the replacement bits, and we've got the replacement bits, but it took over a week to get here, and therefore I decided it would probably be a good idea to take some 100mm or 4-inch galvanized steel and some stainless steel and cut it and shrink it and shut it and bolt it on, and that's now arguably stronger than the original ever was. So yahoo yippee, that seems to have worked. The stove is in service, not leaking and not smoking. Other than that, the windmill powered sunflower is doing its thing, even though it's lost a petal to the autumn. This attempt at a coppice on a sunflower appears to have had its petals die off. Casualty of a swamp wallaby. This one hasn't yet quite opened. These two have died off too early in age. There were another couple along here. That's what's left of one, chewed off by a swamp wallaby. Chewed off by a swamp wallaby. And this one, yesterday my daughter actually got a photograph of a bee trying to pollinate it. So that's not a dead loss. The aloe vera has been chewed off by something. Sunflowers along here have all gone. Oh, that's disappeared probably today or maybe last night. That had promising sunflower bud on it. That's a promising sunflower bud. The ones that were in here have all disappeared. You will recall I spoke of 2 new pieces of stainless steel. Spares for when another 2 segments decide to let go, I guess. Never be mind. You had a nice life for a little sunflower, as did Skitty Kitty. His grave is not quite unmaintained, but last time I mowed, I didn't actually come and remove the cut grass. So we can do that now. But this is not the only way in which Skitty Kitty's time on earth has been memorialised. He's a bit low enough to see some sky behind him. Anyway, the cat with his butterfly. Here it is, well, one of his favourite spots, overlooking his domain in his twilight years. However, camp has changed a little bit since Skitty shuffled off the mortal coil. Nothing is ever static, and the next iteration of this involves, instead of just having the bare hose in the sun, reclaiming this black poly pipe and fitting it over the top with the final bit of the hose as a solar collector, an infrared re-radiator, to heat up the final bit of water in the hose, providing running water for doing the dishes. And as for the late lamented lost Skitty, well, not lost but deceased, departed Skitty, check this out. Grab both at once. Voila! Skitty Kitty's likeness has returned to us in the form of an original painting done for my daughter by one of her friends who she went to primary school with. Well, she had it done for Elizabeth. Yeah. And I'm really impressed. Bloody difficult to try and video in a tent full of diffuse light without getting it covered with reflections. But anyway, yeah, Skitty Kitty's oil painting. So, darling Dotto child is today attending a birthday party for a 2-year-old. I was actually going to go along, but the $300 El Cheapo generator has been acting up. Little miserable mongrel bastard of a thing. It's a 4-stroke inverter generator. It starts up and it runs, and it'll run for anywhere from 5 minutes to perhaps 15 minutes before shutting itself down. It then needs to be choked before it'll start again, and then it'll start and do it again. I would immediately diagnose water in the float bowl of the carburetor and go over and just undo a nut and drain it out. But it's got a completely miniaturized system. It doesn't appear to have any way to drain the bottom of the carburetor that I can see. I've pulled it to pieces. I've taken the fuel line off from the fuel tank. I've sucked fuel from the fuel tank. I've made sure there's no water in the fuel. But I think there's water in either a fuel filter or inside the carburetor, which has got there from sitting here empty for weeks at an end in very humid weather with cold nights. And I think there's water in the carburetor. And even though I know you're not supposed to put ethanol into modern little engines if you can avoid it, and we have been running it on 91 octane no ethanol, I'm going to go to town and buy a litre of methylated spirits, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to mix up about 600 mils. I'm going to get 500 mils of straight petrol, and I'm going to put 100 mils of methylated spirits in there, and I'm going to feed it that 600 mils of 20% ethanol. And I'm going to rely on the ethanol going through the carburetor's float bowl and going through the fuel filter to mix with the water, and let whatever water's in there and is stopping the float bowl or blocking the fuel filter, let that water go through in solution with the ethanol or the methylated spirits, which is just alcohol with methanol added to it. And yeah, ideally I can get the bloody thing to run without needing to be restarted every 5 to 15 minutes, which is how the poor little bugger spent last night, charging her laptop during the time while this thing was stopped, and then jumping up and restarting it every time it stopped. And yeah, poor. It was painful to listen to. And I've had the side covers off this thing about 3 times. And I'm now down to going and getting some methylated spirits to feed it because I haven't got any at home. So, happy Easter Sunday. Warble Daddy is tent fettling. Fettling being a word indicating maintaining, fixing up and keeping it going sort of thing. As in railway fettlers make sure the tracks don't fall to pieces when a train drives over them. And being as it is in fact Easter Sunday, named after Ostara, O-E-S-T-A-R-A, goddess of new life and rejuvenation in the Nordic countries of the Northern Hemisphere, symbolised being for rejuvenation by rabbits and eggs, symbols of fertility. A festival celebrated every year on the first full moon, or the first weekend of the first full moon following the vernal or spring equinox. So here in Oz, in the southern hemisphere, it's not the Ostara festival, it's the Equinox festival. And if you really want to transpose European cultural memes, then this would be the Harvest Moon festival. And southern hemisphere, because rabbits and eggs would be uncool, what we have for the Equinox festival, it's not a rabbit, it's not an egg, it's not even a bilby, it's a Boorabee. Boorabee being the actual word for a koala, this being Ngurubal country, and the Boorabee being the tribal totem of the Ngurubal people. So this year, for the Equinox festival, guess who bought, I think, 9 lint koalas and gave them away to people who might appreciate a Boorabee for not Easter, for the harvest moon in Australia. There you go. How's that? Good ending? Warbles on a lot to YouTube. Ciao. And of course, at Ostara Egg Festival time, all chocolate. Tastes the same. Just saying. Ciao.